Hello, and welcome to Right to Be Wrong, the show that revives the art of conversation, accommodating varied views on sports, culture, politics, world events, and every topic under the sun. After all, you have a right to be wrong. Here are your hosts, Dave and Tony.
Tone, last episode, you made sure you got your 25% of talking time. I actually think you went a bit over, so I really should be cutting you down to about 15, 20%. I do talk a lot. You know I don't mean to. Well, I mean to, I don't mean to.
Dave, I actually ran the numbers.
Crunch the numbers.
I crunched them.
Counting?
How does 25.63% sound to you?
Deal. Done. No, you can have more. You can have 50%.
It was
You know what? Let's do a few episodes where it's right up your alley, where you're getting like 60-40, 70-30 splits.
I've got it, Dave. I've got it.
What? What sort of things would you be?
I think for an hour, we can talk about the treatment of an FX forward contract.
Yeah, that sounds exciting.
It really is exciting.
Yeah, subsection 3.2.7/8 is what's getting me really.
It's an
wet
accounting
right now.
standard, Dave. You wouldn't understand.
Are we talking gap standards, Tone?
We're talking the Australian accounting standards. I think we're talking.
So you don't use gap?
No, we use international accounting standards, Dave.
Well, that's gap.
GAAP, US GAAP. Don't use US GAAP.
You don't use
Actually,
US gap?
Can you give me a bit of a Donny impersonation referencing US GAAP?
US gap. Well, I don't know enough about gap to even make it
It's a clothing brand, Dave.
Oh, you're talking about that gap?
No, I'm joking. I'm joking. So, Dave, what are we talking about today? It's something very close to my heart. Are people inherently good or bad?
People and societies?
Indeed.
Both?
Indeed. People and society is
Are
inherently
people
good.
and societies inherently bad?
Where do we start with this, Dave? So 53, maybe 54 years ago for me, a little after that for you.
You only 54.
Yes.
You look like shit.
I know.
I thought you were
thanks.
62.
Thanks, buddy. Little Tone, little Dave were born. Surely when they were born in their mother's arms, Dave, they were inherently good. Tell me they were.
I think at that point in your life you are.
So therefore,
I think society then screws you.
so intrinsically, and we've got to be careful with that because there's a bit of victim in that statement, right? Not from you, but like that.
No, I know what you mean. I'm just. Well, we sort of are all victims of our environment.
I think we're products of our environment, not necessarily victims.
You know what? I stand corrected.
Can we have that please recorded?
Tom, producer Tom, cut that out. Remember that. Do not let that go on the podcast. That I admitted that I was wrong and Tony was right.
So I think this is where the discussion needs
You know,
to
I'm
start.
never going to release this podcast.
I know.
It's staying hidden, buried, along with hidden Nazi gold,
That's right.
never to be found.
Raiders of the Lost Lodge.
That's-
So this is where it starts, Dave. At some point, right? I think intrinsically we are all good, right? But then
I think some people are born bad.
yeah, true, potentially. I probably agree with that. But the majority, I'd say, like a significant majority, are born with good intentions, a good nature, all of that biological stuff that lends itself to being able to deal with other people, the emotional base to develop into a high functioning human. But then at some point, right, and it has to be a byproduct of the environments that you're in, people go tangent left, skew if right. They pivot badly, don't they?
They do pivot. Can you give me a few more of those corporate words? I want to sound like I'm smarter, like I know I'm talking about. I need some corporate language.
We're going to circle back on that conversation, Dave,
Circle back is good.
and then we're going to build out the conversation.
Build out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that good?
Are you going to thank me for starting the conversation?
Great question.
That one's always annoyed me when someone will say that. Someone will say, blah, blah, blah. Oh, thank you for starting the conversation. The conversation started. You don't need to thank him. There's blowing smoke up people's ass. But anyway, on to our topic. I think that like 99.9% of people are born inherently good. I do think some people are born bad. You know, the sort of person that could grow up in a loving family, you know, a warm bed, full stomach, but you still like torturing animals and it grows into being a serial killer, mass murderer. I think they're in the extreme minority.
Yep.
However, I think from childhood into adulthood, I think the environment that we find ourselves in, and this is again general because I know there's going to be people with better and worse environments, But I think it sufficiently changes enough people to become, as an adult, inherently bad. And the reason why I say that is if we're all inherently good from birth, and on average, the overwhelming majority of us don't change,
Yep.
why would we ever need a police force? Why would we ever need Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines? Why would we need regulation, legislation, and compliance? Because we're all inherently good. And as adults, we'll make inherently good decisions.
So with the inherent good and inherent bad, Dave, is it?
Did you just have a Freudian slip
Yes.
and say, Dad?
Yes.
Tony, I am your father.
With the inherent good and inherent bad,
Oh, hang on, I've just got to cut your hand off to make this real.
it's not binary. Right? You can be good in certain parts of your life, and then you can make some really bad decisions.
But
But
overall, you
overall,
coming out and telling me you're non-binary.
and you can make some really bad decisions that impact and hurt a lot of people. But that doesn't actually tie you as a bad person, does it?
No, but what I would suggest, no, right? Short answer is no. I think when it's an unintentional, so you're making decisions either with what you think is the right thing, and it does hurt others, or you're not thinking and it hurts others, or you're at an age in your life where you're not cognizant of other things, like when you're a young, stupid man and the little head's making the decisions. But what I would mean is if you're making conscious decisions, that if a law or legislation or something wasn't in place, that you would not be making the decision you are, right? So that's what I mean. So, for example, people in corporate, if you could turn around and go into schools and start signing up 7-year-old males for car loans already for when they're going to get their license, there are people who do it. They wouldn't care. You're 12. No, I'm helping them because I know the car's going to be expensive when they're 17. So these 5 years prior to 17 will help them keep that debt under control, right? There's people that would do those sorts of things. So I think what starts to happen is as we get into adulthood, a combination of opportunity and things that happen to us can start to make us anything from opportunistic to cynical. So, and I think that's the point in which I would say that we can morph from the inherently good predisposition to inherently bad.
Yeah.
And that's where I'd say the environmental factors. And on a macro level, the worse your society is on that scale, obviously the worse you'll be as an individual.
So let's.
So taking Nazi Germany is a clear example of sick society.
Yeah, but I was gonna let's spitball some other examples. Start of the GFC, like a whole lot of bankers in a whole lot of big banks in Wall Street all get a bit funky and go, you know what, we can create these products, securitize all these rubbish loans, package them up and create some type of security, give them a AA+ or a AAA+ credit rating, and away you go, right? Like they fundamentally knew what they were doing was wrong, but opportunity, significant reward, right?
Yeah, the incentive was
the
there.
incentive, right? And they go make a whole lot of bad decisions that brings the world to a financial halt, right?
And that was through the whole food chain, right?
That's
'Cause
right.
Mortgage brokers themselves
They're all taking
did
the
like
cut,
ninja
yeah.
loans,
That's
no
right.
income, no job application.
Yeah, sign it, go.
Correct.
Sign it,
So
go.
the mortgage broker at the coalface to the person or people being financed already knew that was wrong. And then the financial institution that they were representing, or they were third-party mediators, they knew it was wrong. And then the people in the CFO levels and whatnot that were packaging this up or knew it was being packaged up, and they knew it was wrong. So it's, if you let your society get unhealthy, what happens, and inherently bad, your individuals become inherently bad.
That's right. So, but there were rules in place, or there weren't rules in place that allowed that to happen, right? And up until the point they got caught and everyone was taking a clip of the ticket and it wasn't impacting anyone, people were heroes,
Correct.
right? Let's pay bigger incentives. Shareholders were fantastic. How good is this? Look at these returns. Oh, this is fantastic. Oh, look at my dividend. Look at my capital growth. Happy days.
And people are happy because our home ownership percentage of the
That's right.
population is increasing.
But
Everyone's
so then,
a winner.
so the lack of oversight from a government, the lack of oversight from from the regulatory bodies via the government just fueled this self-interest and selfishness and this excessive cycle of greed, and that brought out the worst in people. But having said that, I don't necessarily think those people are bad people, right? I just think in the right environment, they got sucked into it and they thought this is too good to be true. And I think anyone in that environment 90% of people in that environment would do the same thing, Dave.
Sadly, I think you're correct.
If that's
I'm in the 10%.
Yeah, no,
and the reason
what I'm
buying
saying
is because I've obviously walked away from things.
I know, but what I'm saying is that.
But I do agree with you. I think you're correct.
If you got brought up through.
Are you listening?
Yeah.
I think you're correct.
I know. So that's
One
twice.
time?
I know. That's twice.
Well, I've really got to kill this podcast.
I know. If you think about Dave.
How about we call this Tony was right, this episode?
If you think about those US Wall Street bankers who might have been 35 years old, went to an Ivy League college, right, into some type of intern program, had only ever been in Wall Street, living a good life, earning a whole lot of money, and they get the ability to print all this money on the back of these loans that they've created, right? That's all they've ever known. They're just a product of their environment. You chase. Correct. You go hard.
Correct.
No, we're going to squeeze out the next 3%.
So
right?
once the culture of that organization got sick, it meant that everyone got sick.
That's right. But then everything I'm not quite sure, was it the society that led to that? Was it the way that market operated that led to that? Was it a combination of everything in the US at that point in time? Because that's where the genesis of this stuff was, where it's dog eat dog. Get as much as you can for yourself while you can, and don't worry about the consequences or just turn a blind eye to it, right? Because it wasn't only the GFC, it was even Enron and so many other companies in the US. So it's a combination of all these factors where people in that instance, a significant majority of people would act the same way. It doesn't inherently make them bad. For me, I say to myself, that's just where they were in, and they actually didn't have the integrity to maybe reflect and go, this is not good. It's going to end badly, because they were too busy snorting coke and banging hookers two at a time.
How do I get one of these jobs?
In some Manhattan nightclub.
Would you say then that people are inherently weak?
We're weak. Weak's probably
rather
better
than bad.
Yeah.
Because it's probably like at the moment with generative AI and what's happening in universities where...
Hang on, hold on. It's the real Dave, people.
It's not AI Dave.
It's not the Dave bot.
AI Dave has hair and a really large penis. But actually, what would you create if you're creating your own? You could build yourself. What would you build?
Me?
Yeah, an AIU.
AI me would probably be.
We've done an AIU. It's coming with all our episodes will be up on YouTube soon.
No,
they can see the AI us in the intro.
It'd be the guy who does 4/5 commish on Step Brothers.
Dale, not Dale. Sorry, what's his name?
You know what I mean?
Dale's brother.
Yeah,
Derek.
Yeah, and then I'd be here my bot would be here on the podcast. Halfway through the podcast, I'd go, I haven't had a carb in 4 years.
It's one of the best.
Look at these
scenes.
bad boys.
One of the best scenes.
So inherently weak, Dave.
So I'd say inherently weak. So what's happening is with generative AI, students, cheating is off the charts because the opportunity is there. And they're probably not inherently bad people, but the opportunity. So it probably means that as with your family, your community, the culture of your workplace, the society in general, you probably need to ensure that if you're not going to send people, if you're not going to turn them bad, because they probably turn bad's probably a better way. The weakness turns them into taking that opportunity, and then the greed kicks in, and it's never enough, and so on and so forth. Just get rich quick. Greed is good. Gordon Gekko, wasn't it?
Yeah,
greed is good.
But then you've also got Dave. So that was just like a point in time. Some greedy people on Wall Street got out of hand. You touched on earlier, before.
But it continues through history.
That's right.
It's happened throughout history. So it revivifies. Well, stupidity and greed revivify at a rapid rate.
So then, how did we? Talk me through Hitler and his badness.
Hitler wasn't bad. he gets a bad rap. You know, he was just a struggling vegan artist. Sounds a lot like the far left at the moment. Well, Hitler's bad came about from his environment because he was the private, as they used to call him. He served in the First World War. So there was a lot of, everything from what he'd seen in the First World War, the trench warfare, the just the brutal nature of what it was. But like many Germans of the time, the loss in the First World War and the sort of surrender of the Kaiser, they felt betrayed. And then that was exacerbated over the years from the Treaty of Versailles, which was what ended the war. And the Treaty of Versailles contained such onerous reparations on the German people, or the Weimar Republic, that people were working just to pay interest to France and others for the war. So that resentment sort of grew in him. So he had part of it from being rejected as a struggling artist, being rejected. I think it was a school in Vienna.
We've all been there, Dave.
Yeah. No, I'm not struggling. I'm just a bullshit artist. But so that resentment started with that. He's obviously had the war, Treaty of Versailles, he really used to rail against. And then sadly, like a lot of people, when things are going wrong and you feel that you're struggling, well, not you feel, you are suffering and or struggling, and you don't want to take an honest appraisal of where that lie. So, for example, the people of that time, it was very, very tough. It wasn't self-inflicted. But often we can do our own things, do stupid things, and it brings about a bad environment, but then we want to blame others for our own shortcomings and what we've done wrong. And that's one of the things I learned when I was younger, right? Or you should learn sort of between your 20s and 30s, is everything's not always everyone else's fault. But the sort of rot had set in that some things weren't the fault of Hitler and other men like him that had been through that. But then it just got to the point where, the meth and things that he was taking and all sorts of things, that his hatred, and then his whole concept that the whole world was being controlled by international Jewry and, the banks and all that sort of stuff. So certainly the environment, his experiences, and then from there, the society of the time sort of let it run right.
But within him, there must have been a level of weakness, right?
Oh, without doubt. I'd say there's also, for me, people like Hitler and Stalin and those, I think there's an element in them that they're predisposed. I think they're born, that those are the ones that I believe
are inherently bad.
And there's triggers that brings it out. So a little bit like a serial killer. If you watch Mindhunter, there's only 2 seasons of it. They're talking about bringing out a movie now. They should have kept it going. It's
Is
great.
it based on fact or?
It's based on fact, which is to do with when the FBI sort of start doing behavioral science unit to try and work out if they can start to profile serial killers to be able to catch them. And one of the ones they go and visit in prison and talk to, he's like more than happy to talk to them, and it's like superstar in his mind. And he starts to talk about these things that are inherently within them and why they do it, and the drive to kill, and how they select their victims and things like that. So there's sort of like triggers. So I think for the Hitlers of the world, I think he was born inherently bad.
Yep.
And then the triggers were so catastrophic along the way that look at what it left the world. Although having said that, we ask people, the worst person in the world, and they'll say Hitler, but he's not. And this is not a defense. There's worse. It's because our education is such that people aren't aware of how many Stalin actually killed, how many Mao. Mao was the worst. The Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution in China, he literally had kids were turning their parents into authorities, and he killed something like the estimations between 40 and 100 million Chinese killed under Mao, like massive. So we talk about the Holocaust at 6 million, which is catastrophic and terrible. But why do we not also teach about 100 million under Mao and the same under Stalin?
That opens up a separate discussion there. But in the West, we don't do a good job of that, do we?
No. Well,
in terms of education,
you've only got the kids in school for what, 6 hours a day, 5 hours a week, 40 weeks a year, and we're filling them with so many things that are unnecessary, or that are necessary but are parental, right? So sex education and some of these things that parents should be teaching and whatnot. And we're not using our time wisely in how we educate them. So for me, school in today's world, especially in a generative AI world, to me, you want to be teaching them civics. You want to be teaching them their math, their English. You want to teach them history. You want to teach them financial literacy, things that when they leave, they're going to actually use.
Yeah.
And maybe that we might even start to have multiple streams, right? So maybe we rejig the whole school system instead of, a primary school and a high school, or the US is junior, middle, senior. But maybe we need to break it down further into four parts that, if you're showing an aptitude and an interest in algebraic equations because you're going to go on to do math or do engineering, you'll go down that path. And if not, you'll stick in these other things instead of trying to cram so much into people that, for the most part, they're not going to use it. Like, when was the last time you used an algebraic equation?
Funny you should mention that last night. I'm being serious.
Teaching the boys.
Yeah, teaching Dom.
No, but the question is, when was the last time you used it?
I would have been.
Like in life or work, right?
Yeah.
When was the last time you used calculus?
2x squared plus.
When was the last time you
equals.
used Pythagoras' theorem?
All I can tell you, Dave, is that an isosceles triangle has got 2 equal angles or 2 equal sides.
Like, you know what I mean?
And a right angle triangle can be isosceles because it's 45, 45, and 90. There you go.
When was the last time you used pi?
Pi.
Outside of sitting at the G with a beer.
Yeah, I know. 3
Like, do you see what I'm getting at?
20 to 1, 20 to
the
1,
shit
7,
that
Dave.
we were taught.
Yeah.
What do we use? I use English and math from school. Otherwise, most of the other stuff, a little bit of science. But yeah, there's a lot of things you get taught that just why? There'd be better things. I would have been better off being taught financial literacy early because I was so wasteful with money even when I had a part-time job in school. I was making good money. Like, I was umpiring indoor cricket, and this is back in like 1988, 89, my last 2 years of school, last year and a half of school. And I was getting, they were paying $12 a game, and I'd umpire 3 games a night, 4 nights a week. It's like $144. And it was, 35 years ago.
You were loaded, bro.
I should have been if I had.
You made
financial. Bank. I did make bank. You know why? Because indoor cricket was at the Catalina wine mixer. Pow pow. But I should have been like sort of even $44 a week. Imagine spending $44 a week as a 14, 15-year-old back then and having $100 a week away. I should have been finishing school with half a deposit for a block of land out west.
Yeah.
Instead, I wasted it.
I know. So, Dave, let's talk about some of the science aspects. So studies show that infants as young as 6 months demonstrate a sense of fairness and empathy.
Yeah,
so which would suggest that there's some level of innate goodness. But interesting one that the brain's prefrontal cortex regulates fear, aggression, empathy, and altruism. So biology sets the wiring, but environment shapes how it's expressed.
Correct. Now, I saw something the other day from an expert. I want to watch this whole thing and have a discussion on it. I can't remember whether she was a psychiatrist, psychologist, what her qualifications were, but she was actually saying the worst thing you can do for your child is put them in daycare when they're 3 years of age and under. And it was to do with the amygdala and the growth and what you're talking about. They said the way you're naturally wired, what you're doing is you're changing all that because you're taking them away from the mother, and some really interesting stuff that's starting to come out that could completely explode the whole two-income, dump your kid in childcare stuff that we've got to in the last 20 years based on what you've just said about the development and the predisposition. One of the things, my biggest criticism of the woke left and where we went is just this denial of reality, of biological reality. And instead of wanting to learn more and more about ourselves as to why we're predisposed to certain things, we went the other way. So, for example, I learned that one of the reasons why men like curves on women is there's a protein that's one of the main proteins of a baby's brain development that is found predominantly in a woman's hips and butt. So when we look at them, we're like, curves. What we're doing is our predisposition is going healthy progeny. Yeah, my child will develop well because she's got the shape there. That should be a lot of protein.
I get that all the
and things
time.
there. Tony, you've got great hips.
Yeah.
I must say.
I've
Your breasts leave a little bit to be desired.
I've got some junk in the trunk, bro.
Well, I see you've been waxing your jugs.
But so, Dave, we look at some, let's look at COVID, right? There's a whole lot of goodwill amongst people to help each other navigate that, right? So,
and look at the opportunists that took it as a chance to be dictatorial and.
Yeah, true, right? So that again, that's
so
both,
a good example.
That flips, right? I mean, both sides of the coin. It shows you, because that is for our generation. That is the trauma of our lifetime to date.
COVID's my name, man.
That's right.
So are you telling me that in another 20 years we'll be walking around instead of those guys going, Viet fucking name, man, we'll be fucking vid, man. It was terrible. You know, I was stuck in my home and I was streaming Netflix and I was getting Uber Eats. It was hell, man. You understand.
I'll never forget trying to homeschool one of the kids. Oh,
that would have been tough.
There were some F-bombs going off. But so there is, in times of difficulty, people will rally together, generally speaking. A community will, won't they? Right? And that's
a good, healthy community.
Like your example, family, your neighbourhood, your suburb, your community, your city, your state, your country, right? You rally together to help each other. I think we do that pretty well out here. But I want to touch on again, are good and bad actually fixed categories? Or do they kind of, fly in the wind based on context and where the individual may or may not be at a certain point in time?
I think it also is cultural. I think the definition of good and bad is subjective cross cultures. So what we consider good and what someone else considers good can be quite different, right?
Yeah, okay.
So an extreme example, but it would have been, for us, the fact that a woman can have a driver's license and take herself where she wants, when she wants, and without her husband or father's permission, we would say is a healthy society that the individual in our society can choose to live as she wishes. And in Saudi, that was very different. I still think I could be wrong here because there's been such recent rapid changes in the last few years, but you used to have your father's permission to get a passport, right, to leave the country, and that would be transferred to your husband once you married. And if your father had died, it'd be the oldest brother and so on and so forth down the line. So their definition and our definition of something that would be good is quite different as well. So I think that's why the issues when we talk good and bad is culturally, what do we mean by good and bad?
So if humans are inherently one way or the other, does that excuse certain types of behavior at different times? Or should we always, as an adult, always bear full responsibility for our actions?
No, I actually think that the question is binary. The answer is grey, right? So the question is black and white, but the answer is grey. Because something just came to mind. So there are two things. I'll start with the first thing, where we have the concept in the West of everyone's equal in the eyes of the law, correct?
Yep.
Well, it's actually not how we apply it.
Go on.
So, for example, there are things before the law, the same you and I, and two people in two different jobs, two different life experiences could commit the same offense, but would be treated differently based on the expectation of how they should have behaved given their station in society. So one clear example would obviously be police over civilians. The expectation they're dealt with more harshly, right? Because they should know better. So you would say, well, is that equal under the law? That if you're getting a harsher punishment for the same offense based on what your job is that right or is that wrong? Now, I don't want to go too deep into that because it's a whole episode. But even taking away from professions, what will happen is if you've got an IQ of 80 and you grew up in, say, Western Sydney or a low socioeconomic background, and you've got an IQ of 115, 120, and you grew up in a well-to-do area and you've been to university, the same thing will apply, right? So what will happen is, well, you should have known better. So there's the subjectivity of that. So then it's a whole question of, are we equal under the law? But let's not go down that rabbit hole. But one obvious one that jumps out to me is, let's use the National Rugby League. And for those listening around the world, it could be, the Premier League in the UK, it could be your NFL, whatever. Generally, this applies more in combat, contact sports and combat. So this is for soldiers as well. We ask people in a sports arena to be the modern day gladiators, to entertain us, right? We put them on pedestals, or with contact sport, we ask them to charge into each other at speed, and we love the collision, we love the contest.
And just pause there for a second, and we also pay them about 20 times the average.
Correct. And that's what we're going to say. We
Reward
them quite well.
Sure.
Our soldiers, and particularly things like special forces, but all soldiers, we'll ask them to, go into combat zones to kill or be killed, to protect us, right? So we have these things that we ask them to do, things we wouldn't do ourselves. And we do it for our entertainment. We do it for our protection. But as soon as that guy comes home from a tour of duty, or he crosses over the line at full time, we have this expectation that these tough men, generally, and there are women, but we have this expectation that they'll suddenly revert to being a gentleman, right? And so an example of this is where we had an issue here in Australia a few years back where the Special Air Service, the SAS, based out of Perth, there was a big hoo-ha because they had topless girls serving them alcohol on barracks. I'm thinking, so you'll ask these guys to go into a combat zone, do things that we can't even tell you what they did, and then when they come home, you speak, good afternoon, sir, how are you today? It doesn't work like that, right? Or these guys have been smashing into each other for 80 minutes on a football field, and then again, the same thing, you expect them to behave the way you do, working in an office environment, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, air conditioning, no stresses, no hyping up the adrenaline, all the things we do. So I think there's an inherent flaw in us, that our expectations of others when we talk about good and bad, or what we want from them, and then how we expect them to be once the game's over, once the war's done, once the tour's done, that it's our fault for having unrealistic expectations on these people that live outside the norm in what they do.
Yeah. I like that NRL example. I don't have much sympathy for them, because when I see them making bad decisions, e.g., I'm up on the Sunshine Coast with my mates on a bye, we all play for the Roosters, let's call one of our teammates to see if we can get some cocaine for the weekend. Just dumb, right? Just so dumb, Dave, right?
I agree. It's
right.
dumb.
I just feel like saying to them, you got the ability to set yourself up for life. So those players, there's nothing good or bad about it. They're just fucking dumb.
Yeah, but what you're doing, this is what I mean, right? You're expecting that they have the intellect that you do to make the rational decision of what the opportunity cost is of their behaviour on that weekend off.
But the reason why they can't do that, and I walk back that dumb comment, is because in that environment, they're almost untouchable.
Yes.
Right. So the environment creates the opportunity for them to be incentivized.
Correct. And who creates the environment?
We do.
Correct.
Because we pay for it.
Correct. Because we want it.
Because I've got a KO Foxtel subscription.
100%.
Fine.
Because I want to watch the UFC. I want to watch the boxing. I want to see them smash into it. So I'm asking you to do things to your body and your brain that are unrealistic that I would never do myself, because I'm cognitively capable of making good money without damaging myself. But once you finish, you better act like me.
Yeah, I get it.
That's unrealistic, right? That's our flaw.
Yeah, I get it.
What we should do is, when that happens, we should laugh, and I don't mean laugh and brush on the carpet. What do we expect?
I know.
They're the gladiators.
I know.
Because the term, I'll give you an example of how people will behave when you're sort of in an environment where there's sort of nothing to lose. You know the term flyboy? He's a real flyboy.
Yeah.
You know where that came from?
No.
It actually came from the Battle of Britain in the Second World War. That at the height of the Battle of Britain, the Royal Air Force, the average life expectancy of a Spitfire pilot was 2 weeks. So if you flew a mission, so the Germans are coming over in the Blitz to bomb London or bomb England, they're coming over, you get scrambled, you go up, you're lucky enough to get shot down, and you know that could happen again tonight in 12 hours, it could be tomorrow, whenever you're going out for another sortie. And you're 18, 19, 20 years of age, and you just saw 20% of the squad didn't come back, and the day before 20 and so on and so forth. How do you think you're living?
Reckless.
Those guys were drinking hard. They were trying to, fuck every nurse they could or every girl they could, because they expected they would be dead within a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I get it.
So when you take young men predominantly, but again, we've got women and getting into the combat sports and sports. But when you take young men and you say, go up there and shoot down the German bombers to save us, or go onto that NFL field and smash the crap out of each other to entertain me, you've got to have an expectation that what you've done is you've set up a life for them that is going to be different from what you do, and the responsibility is on you because you've asked for the security or the entertainment.
I know, but I've paid for that.
Yeah.
And then they've got to understand through the right support structures in them, in that environment, that when I'm still sitting at my office punching out emails at 7:30 at night and pushing paper because that's all I've done for 40 years, they're going to be set up for life. They're never going to have to work again.
Some.
Yeah, that's right, at the elite level. So, Dave, we stepped into this. We focused a bit more on the bad. I want to make a couple of comments, and I want to see how you respond. So, a philosopher, Hobbes, life without rules is nasty, brutish, and short.
100%. Right, definitely, because again, let's think about when we're young. How do you drive when you're young? You first get your license as a male. You drive like an idiot. Now, you might not be the guy that's doing 200 Ks now down the freeway. Never?
No.
Never did a burnout?
No.
You never did donuts?
I never told you this, but my first job was actually an accountant for the police department.
When was your last desk pop?
Desk pop?
You don't know desk pop?
So go on. So life without rules.
Yeah, you imagine young men are stupid. Full stop. There's very few young men that have an old head and young shoulders.
Young people.
Yes, but girls mature faster than
Yeah.
boys, right? So you take the average 18 to 20-year-old female, she's going to have her head screwed on average, a bit better than an 18 to 20-year-old male.
Sure.
That's why the statistics of deaths in motorcycle accidents, car accidents, it's predominantly young men. And by that I mean like the drivers, not someone happened to be victim in the thing. So I think life without rules. You imagine what we'd all be like. It'd be like warlords in Africa. That's what happens. That's why you get warlords.
Yeah, okay. That's a good one. So the next one's an interesting one. Biology. So evolution, Dave, favors aggression as much as cooperation. Survival often meant domination.
Correct.
But in that context, in terms of being dominant and being an aggressor, is that necessarily being bad, or again just a product of the situation that you're in?
No, I think it's this is something I saw Jordan Peterson say, because he sort of just started going down the biblical stuff, and he was going through some things, and one of the things was the saying, "The meek shall inherit the earth," and he said he struggled with that. He said because that doesn't make any sense. The meek, like the weak people are nothing. And he said what's happened is the word meek has actually morphed lost in translation and morphed in meaning over the years. Its original meaning was something to the effect of like a warrior that knows when to keep his sword sheathed will inherit. In other words, better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. So I think strength and aggression is a very important part, and particularly of men. And I'm not saying you have to be aggressive, but at the end of the day, that's what you should be. You should be a warrior in a garden, right? That people can't push you around. They can't attack your family. There's a certain inherent strength and aggression that you could unleash if you needed to unleash, but you know when to do it and why to do it, and that's for the right reasons.
Okay, good one. Next one is history. So genocide, slavery, systemic exploitation, too consistent across so many cultures to be an accident.
Yeah, and this is where I got corrected by you at the start of the episode. That's probably more the weakness and the opportunity. People take opportunities, and I think there's what is it? I can't remember the data. It's something like 10% of people are narcissistic, and then if you throw in what they call the dark triad of the other things, it's like 15 or 20%, 1 in 5. So if you get all those people together that want to dominate a country or a world or a people's, you're in serious trouble. In fact, one of my criticisms of our modern leadership in corporate is that we've allowed too many narcissists to rise to the top, not genuine leaders. And that's why we've got some of the problems that we have. But certainly in terms of whole nation states, and yeah, I think if you don't have a rule of law, I think what you get is the warlord. But having said that too, we've been through, it's taken us millennia to get to the point we're at, and not all nation states are, because when I say warlords, there are still warlords in parts of the world.
Yeah.
We forget in the West, or we forget, some people don't even know our history, and how we got to things like the Magna Carta, like the Great Charter, and how we broke the divine right of kings. Because it used to be you're a king because there was a belief in the hereditary nature of it, was because there was a divine right bestowed upon you by God to rule. So all those things we've been through, that we've developed the society we have, not through, and it's been through aggression. You think of all the civil wars, you think of all the international wars. At the end of the day, the freedom isn't free, Tone. It costs folks like you or me.
Oh, Team America.
I knew I'd find a quote in there somewhere for it. But that's a funny movie, and it's a funny line, but it's true. And what happens is, as generations don't have the experience or the knowledge passed down, you get to the point where you just, repeat the same mistakes.
Yeah. And the thing is, even in what you and I would call like healthy, flourishing nations, right? Exploitation still happens. The
100%.
wealthy are still screwing around everyone.
Yeah.
And there's that natural class divide, the oppressed and the oppressors.
Well, I don't think it's the oppressed and the oppressors. I'm very much in the survival of the fittest. I think that's one of the truest things, which people say Darwin, survival of the fittest, but no, Darwin's theory of evolution was on natural selection. It was Herbert Spencer, based on Darwin's theory, that actually said survival of the fittest. And I think the survival of the fittest is probably the truest thing, because if you see the cultures that survive, you see the corporations that survive, all those things, it's very much a survival of the fittest.
Okay, indeed. And then a couple other facts, Dave. I came across something as I've been searching here around good and bad and where it all kind of fits in.
I thought you were on Pornhub.
No, 92% of societies have engaged in a war of some description, Dave. So cooperation may exist, but confrontation and aggression, it's deeply rooted.
Without doubt, it's a constant. The Clausewitz doctrine, what do you say, is war is diplomacy by other means, because there's always going to be companies, countries, communities that they want to control, whatever it might be. Well, it might be the resources, means of production. That this is constant.
And a good one for the digital age we're in, 41% of US adults have experienced online harassment. So behind the mask of social media, there's a lot of tough people who don't mind, showing their true colours.
Yeah, the mask. That's a good saying.
You know what I mean?
Right,
So when they've got the ability to hide, so what brings that out? Like, especially when people are anonymous, people, it must just tap into the darker side of people where it can be really brave and tough here.
There's no consequences. Less consequences.
Like Mike Tyson's famous quote. There's too many people sitting behind keyboards who have never been smacked in the mouth because of something they've typed.
Yeah, exactly.
Something along those lines.
Yeah, it's very easy to say things from a keyboard. In fact, what I think that we've done with some of the regulation and legislation we've created is we've empowered the coward. So what I mean by that is, in the old days, if someone was a smart ass, and not in your first instance, you'd walk away, but you kept going, he was poking you and carry on, you give him a punch in the face, but you can't do that anymore, right? So what happens is there's no consequences for what you do, because everyone's got to go off and tell mummy and daddy police force or someone to do anything about it. We've taken the citizens' ability to deal with things with other citizens, within reason. I'm not talking about go down the street and just shoot someone because you had a disagreement with them. But the people that can do this now, back in our day, what would have happened? Imagine those words being said face to face.
At a pub.
In a pub. You get punched.
That's right.
And you learn not to do it. But what we've done is we've empowered the coward. We've created all this legislation that protects them. We've given them mechanisms that allow them to hide online. And it's running rampant. Let's just start punching people in the face again.
Another quote, Dave, from a philosopher. The banality of evil. So ordinary people can commit atrocities when the systems normalize them.
Correct. And this is another...
So it's a recurring theme here, Dave.
Yeah.
It's byproduct of the society that they live in where things are normalised. And, it's actually normalised to go down the street and see someone wearing a certain flag or something and whack them in the head. We can do that.
Have you read the book Ordinary Men?
No.
Ordinary Men is about, is it Unit 576 or something? But it's about a German police unit, normal policemen, not Gestapo or anything, but they end up getting tasked with having to commit some atrocities. And the commanding officer, when they first get it, says, I know this is, if no one wants to take part in this, you can leave now, no repercussions type thing. And anyway, they stay. And by the end of the war, some of the things they're doing just on the basis of, those are our orders. And Jordan Peterson actually talks about it all the time because his area of expertise he spent a lifetime on was totalitarian society, what makes communists, the Nazis, whatever. And he says all the time, he said, everyone likes to think that, if they were there in those days, they'd be the one that speaks up. He goes, no, you wouldn't. He goes, you'd be the guard at Auschwitz. He said, you wouldn't speak up. Everyone around you is doing it. You would go with the flow, and some of you would like it. And he said, that's the reality of what's within, sadly, what's within a significant minority of us.
So here's one to consider. Think back to the last time you helped a stranger. Why did you do it? Was it instinct? Was it empathy or social pressure?
It's not the last time, but it's one that stands out in my mind because I think it was, my boss thought it was bullshit. So anyway, when I was an apprentice, as an apprentice in the barber industry, you're just basically standing behind the shoulder of a tradesman watching. And I could see out of the corner of my eye, I saw this blind man walking down the footpath. Now, there'd been roadworks about 15 metres down. They pulled up all the footpath and everything. This is on Old Northern Road, right at the corner.
Yeah.
When you can go from Windsor Road and turn up.
Have you seen what they've done there lately?
So
it's all knocked down now.
Yeah. Well, they knocked it down when they shouldn't have because they were renting it out and someone's clearly gone broke and it's partially knocked down.
Yeah.
It's been like that for years. But anyway, I see this blind guy walking down. I know that he's going to have a problem when he gets to the thing. So I just go out and I help him cross the road. And when I come back, Paul goes, where the fuck did you go? I went off the blind man across the road. It just sounded like such bullshit.
Yeah.
Just a bit of a story. There was one better, though. He had an apprentice once that was late for work. Where the hell were you? He said, an elephant fell off a truck up in Castle Hill. And Paul thought that was bullshit and then saw the story later on that the circus was in the town and one of the trucks, an elephant container carrying the elephant fell off the back of the truck.
How funny. So,
yeah, I like to think I do things just because it's the right thing to do. But believe me, there's plenty of wrong things I've done. In fact, one thing, here you go, I'm getting very deep and meaningful here. One thing I'm noticing getting into my 50s is some of those things I did wrong are starting to come up in my memories, even though they're 20 or 30 years later.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, and not like, I'm crying myself to sleep. I don't mean like that. You just, no, I'm getting to a stage where I start to feel more bad about the bad I did, and I try to be better, even though you can never make up for a wrong, right? People say, no, you can't. Once you've hurt someone, once you've broken someone's heart, once you've stolen something, whatever it is you did, it's done. It's done. But it's funny. I'm starting to think about all the things that, 15 to 30, like even had and some of them are funny, but again, today we'd go so over the top. So I'll give you an example.
Well, Dave, I wouldn't call spreading your butt cheeks for Playboy magazine.
I went out
under the name of Mike Honcho was funny.
So
it was semi-erotic, not funny.
It was semi-erotic. No, it's not true, listeners. No one would pay to look at me. I don't know why, but when we were 16, 17, we thought it was funny to go and steal the golf flags at what used to be Kellyville Golf Course. So it's like midnight.
Just time out there. Where was that?
It used to be
On Memorial Drive or Fairway Drive?
No, not the Fairway Drive goes on to Castle Golf Course. But if you keep going further out, it's out near the Fiddler type thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, sort of out that way, and it was on that same side.
Okay.
So all that development
Yeah,
came. And so anyway, I can't even remember the guys I was with. But we thought it was funny to go onto the golf course in the middle of the night and take 4 flags. So I had these 4 golf flags just in my room for years until I got rid of them. And it's just something you do when you're young and stupid. You think, I'll just go and steal the golf flags, like Beavis and Butthead. If that happened today, you imagine the kerfuffle someone would go over a 16-year-old, charged and take them to court. You know what? Honestly, and this is what came into my head literally yesterday, I'm like, if the golf course was there, I'd probably tell them, how much is a golf flag? Oh, why? So, no, how much is a golf flag? They cost us $150 each. No worries. I owe you $650. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's what I do because it just popped in my head. So there's a lot of silly stuff. But I think, again, getting to our thesis, it's the opportunity, right? It was like back in the day, we didn't need security, didn't need everything. Young men, being stupid, went and stole golf flags.
Yeah. So, Dave, let's wrap this up. So the evidence is all over the place. Infants showing kindness. Society's locked into wars. Our brain wired in a certain way for both empathy and aggression. So maybe the better question isn't, are people good or bad, but what conditions bring out which side?
That's a very good question, Tone.
Because I think that I started with inherently good, but then why do we see so much bad in the world and self-interest? Because people...
Why the triggers?
We become just a byproduct of our environment. And then so for us, we've got responsibility for little men. We got to make sure we bring them up in an environment where they clearly understand the difference between right and wrong.
Yeah, that's what I make sure every night when I get home, I stand him in the corner and make him watch me beat his mum with a baseball bat for 35 minutes until she begs to stop. And, no, the Mauritian Queen doesn't get any of that. That's why she's known as the Mauritian Queen.
And she would kick the shit out of you as well.
Oh, wouldn't she?
I would back her in a heartbeat.
Short odds. She's like $1.
That's right.
She definitely, yeah.
Another good discussion, Dave. So I think we can end it there and say, irrespective of whether people are good or bad, or society is good or bad, you and I are both good people.
Now,
can you give us a Donny close on the topic?
It's very hard for me, Tom, because you know I'm only good people. I don't surround myself with any bad people. All the bad people are Democrats. A lot of Democrats are bad people. But the Republican Party, John, all good. No one's going downstairs. Everyone's going upstairs.
Thanks, Donny. See you next week.
Au revoir.
Thank you for listening to this episode, and we hope you enjoyed it. Like us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.